All right, people, we're here. The last regular season snap count Monday of 2022. Now, the 2022 season. And obviously, we're probably going to do some more videos like this next week because we have at least one playoff game in front of us. But this is the last snap count Monday of the regular season. And obviously, when you're talking about things like snap counts, they matter more in the regular season because the regular season is about maintaining balance and finding a way to use all your players and not put too big of a workload on any one guy. Whereas when you get to the playoffs, like we are going to be next week, that's about getting your best players on the field as much as possible. And if your depth is limited, then you're going to have guys who just have to play 90% of the snaps. And hopefully you're not in that situation, but I think we all understand that when you're in the postseason, you're just going to go all out because there might not be a tomorrow. You're not looking to maintain a rotation of a bunch of different guys to keep guys fresh. You hope that you can keep the guys fresh in the regular season so you can get extra out of them in the postseason, which is where we are. But we are probably going to do another video like this next week after the Niners playoff game. But this is a special video. We are taking a look at the year in summation. And we're going to start with the offense here. First of all, we had a lot of plays on offense. Even though the offense didn't play a great game, they stayed on the field a lot. And they've now had three straight games of 70-plus snaps. So they ended the year on a positive note in that regard. Not necessarily in terms of the points they were scoring, but they stayed on the field and got up to almost 1,100 plays run. Ken Walker shouldered a huge load in that Rams game, which made sense. He was one of our best players in that game, and we needed it. So I'm not surprised that DJ Dallas saw much less time than he had the previous two games, and that Walker ended up playing more snaps than he's played in any game this year, 61. And Nick Bellore got 4 snaps. Iwabuke got 1 snap. And look, this is not bad, man. Our top running back played less than 53% of snaps this year. Slightly more than half. Now, some of that is because he didn't play in a couple of weeks, and he also had a couple of weeks where he didn't play very much. There were definitely some games where he had a massive workload. But 52.61% of the total snaps for Walker's good. And you got to remember, we lost our starting running back in week 5, so it's understandable that Walker would get a slightly heavier workload. And DJ Dallas getting about 200 snaps sounds pretty much perfect to me, so we did a good job here. Wide receiver. Metcalf got 58 snaps, Lockett got 55 snaps, and the story of the game to me, or one of the many stories of this game to me, was the play of the backup receivers who had not done anything in the NFL before stepping up a little bit. Cade Johnson got 29 snaps and made a couple big catches. Derek Young got 17 snaps and made a couple big catches. Both those guys, I hope they have a future on this team. I like them a lot more than I do Penny Hart, who ended up barely playing this year, which hopefully that's a positive sign that we're ready to move on. And look, I want to improve our receiver depth this offseason, but if guys like Derek Young and Cade Johnson want to contribute, then I think that's big. So I'm excited to see what they can do next year. Maybe they'll get more consistent playing time rather than just picking up playing time at the end of the year because of injuries. And you can see that Laquan Treadwell, despite making a couple decent plays last week, he kind of wore out his welcome here. He barely played. And as kind of expected in this offense with the McVay heavy tight end stuff, no receiver played more than 82% of the snaps. Now, Lockett probably would have played around 82, 83% if he didn't get hurt and miss a game and miss basically half of another game. But we were able to not put a huge workload on any one receiver. Lockett played less than 800 snaps. Metcalf played less than 900. I don't mind that. I think that's pretty good. And Goodwin probably would have played about 500 snaps if he didn't get hurt. Maybe even more, actually, because he missed a couple of games earlier in the year. So pretty good here. Tight end, interesting wrinkle here. Interesting development. In the absence of Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson has actually become our most utilized tight end. I think we trust his two-way play more than we do Noah Fant. Noah Fant's actually been a pretty decent blocker this year, but it seems like we trust Parkinson more in a two-way role, So he's actually played almost the whole game the last 2 weeks, and Fant's played his usual about 60-ish%. But that's where Fant ends up at the end of the year, about 60% of the snaps played. Disley would have been around there if he didn't get hurt, I think. And Colby Parkinson would have been around 35, but because of his increased workload the last 2 weeks, he's up to over 40. So you can see that we were able to mix in the tight ends really well. That was one of the core tenets of this offense. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the way this offense was able to maintain a balance with their pass catchers overall. Offensive line, going to be a lot less interesting this week. All the starters played every snap. Jake Curhan played 4 snaps as a swing tackle. He was the guy in motion a couple times. Forsyth also played a few snaps as a swing tackle. And that's pretty much all I can really say about this. The only really interesting thing here is how Gabe and Haynes split snaps. So that's your offense. Let's move on over to the defense here. And the defense played a grand total of 61 snaps in this game, which is solid. Solid. Again, the defense played a pretty good game. And overall, they were not that far off from parity. The defense played just over 11,050 snaps. 1,150 snaps. So they played approximately a game's worth of extra snaps compared to the offense. But it was a lot worse just a few weeks ago, I think. So this is not bad at all. And they did a pretty good job spreading the snaps around in most cases, like the defensive line. Like, okay, first of all, in this game, Shelby Harris was the only guy who played more than half the snaps. Al Woods played 28, Poona Ford 22, Quentin Jefferson 26. So they did a pretty good job mixing things up on the defensive line. The only guy who played more than half the game was Shelby. And as you can see, the only defensive lineman who played more than half the snaps on the year was Poona Ford. He played about 55. I think that makes sense. Poona Ford is one of your better defensive linemen. I don't know if he should be on a defensive line like this, but you gotta you gotta dance with the girl you brought sometimes. And in this case, Poona Ford, not a good fit for this defense, I don't think, was the girl that we brought. And I don't think he played terrible. He just didn't play good. And he needed to go out there, and at the end of the day, he gave you 650 snaps. So that's not a bad spread. You've got 2 guys here that played just less than half of the snaps. Shelby Harris probably would have played a little more than half if he didn't get hurt early in the year. And Quentin Jefferson, I have to say, has come on like a freight train in the last month and actually played some pretty solid football. And you were able to squeeze out about a third of the snaps from Al Woods. He got hurt a couple times, missed games. He's old. He shouldn't be playing a huge chunk of the snaps anyway. And you got a little bit out of guys like Adams and Collier. So the snap spread here is pretty good. The problem is these guys are just not that good at football. We need to bring in a couple new defensive linemen at least this offseason. Might need to completely remake our defensive line here. But the snap spread itself is fine. Okay, edge rusher. We had a really good split of snaps in this game. 30 for Taylor, so basically half the game. Nwosu played most of the game, but not a huge number of plays, 42, workable. 26 for Mafe, and 24 for Bruce Irvin. I like that. I think that's a really good balance. You're getting snaps to everybody. Nobody's getting overworked, and this is going to allow guys like Bruce Irvin to play as well as he did yesterday. I thought Bruce Irvin played a really good game, partially because he's not playing as much lately. That's a huge deal for a guy like him who's been on the couch just a few months ago. And overall on the year, obviously things got out of whack here. We played Nwosu over 900 snaps. That's a problem. We should not be playing really any edge player over 900 snaps unless it's somebody like a TJ Watt or Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons. This is too many snaps for a guy like Nwosu, and I think that's why he wasn't as effective at the end of the year. We played him too much. Too many games where he had 55, 65 snaps. The rest of this I get. Like Mafe's a raw rookie. You don't want to play him a ton. He ended up playing about 37% of the snaps. That's good. Taylor was a big disappointment this year, especially early on, and came on strong at the end when we let him play in a limited role. So giving him about 42% of the snaps makes sense. Irvin probably got too many snaps as well because he's so old, but we figured that out a little bit by the end of the year. Over the last 3 games combined, he gave you like less than 60 snaps. And he was pretty effective, I thought, on those 60 snaps. So we found some stuff here, but we really need to get better at this position one way or the other so that we don't have to put this giant load on Nwosu in 2023. That's what I would say about that. Inside linebacker, no Jordan Brooks means Cody Barton plays every snap, and he played fine. Tanner Muse played a decent chunk of the snaps as well, 38. Played fine as near as I could tell. And we also saw a good amount of Alexander Johnson. First action this year for him. Played all right. Nothing over the top, nothing crazy. But I noticed him make a couple of positive plays. So every little bit helped in a game like that where you barely won. You needed overtime to win. Every little bit helps. So it's hard to glean a ton from this because some of these guys only started playing when guys got hurt. Like Tanner Muse would have basically never played if Brooks didn't get hurt a couple times this year. But I didn't mind what I saw with Tanner Muse overall this year, and I wouldn't mind bringing him back and maybe even having a little bit of a role for him next season. Barton, I don't know. Like, Barton's tough because there are positive things about his game, but he's still a net negative player. So I don't know what we do there. Obviously, Brooks would have played every snap this year if he stayed healthy. So that's not really a problem. A player like Jordan Brooks can play every snap. The problem is Jordan Brooks, I don't think, is a very good player. So the splits here are more or less fine. I would have liked to have seen a little less Cody Barton, but we had to do what we had to do, especially when Brooks got hurt at the end of the year. We had to play Barton a lot. And we did get to see a reasonable chunk of Tanner Muse at the end of the year, and I thought he played fairly well. So I like that. I like Tanner Muse a lot. I've talked about him before. I'm excited for him. And that's really all you can say about the inside linebacker splits this year. They were fine, and that's all there is to it. Cornerback. Tariq Woolen missed 3 snaps with that injury. And I think that's actually worth stressing on because that injury looked bad, and he missed 3 snaps. So we got very fortunate there. Michael Jackson played every snap. I thought he played okay. Struggled a little early. He blew contain on that one long run play to Cam Akers, but I thought he got better after that. Kobe Bryant, 51 snaps. It's always good when Kobe's playing a lot of the game. It feels like our defense is always better when he's out there a majority of the time. And Trey Brown filled in for Woolen for 3 plays, and that's pretty much all you got. So Tariq Woolen, who I didn't even think was going to play this year on defense, ends up playing 98% of your snaps. Michael Jackson, who I wasn't really thinking about that much this season as a crucial part of this defense, 94% of the snaps almost. Kobe Bryant, who I didn't think was going to be a good nickel corner in this league, ends up playing about almost 2/3 of the snaps. Now, granted, he didn't play great, but he didn't play terrible either. And I think that as we move forward, we will put him in better positions to succeed. So you got to say the return on investment at cornerback this year was incredibly good. Really, really strong stuff here. And, Ryan Neal did not play any in these last 3 games. Hopefully he gets back soon. But, the cornerback stuff, really good. Really exciting here. Let's go to safety and see what we did in the absence of Ryan Neal. Quandre Diggs ends up playing every snap on the year, which is expected when he doesn't get hurt. And Abram manned the other spot. I thought he played all right. I would not mind bringing Abram back next year. He's somebody who's proven he can be like poor man's Jamal Adams, and we might need that. And Teez DeBoer played 7 snaps, so not a huge chunk of snaps in this game. We were focused on stopping the run with limited success. We didn't think the Rams could beat us with their passing game, and they didn't. And overall, we got to saw a decent chunk of both players this year. DeBoer and Abram at the end of the year got decent auditions, so we kind of know what we got. Okay, that's it for Snap Count Monday for the regular season. A lot of stuff I like here. The main things in terms of just the snap count split. We got to take it easy on Nwosu going forward. We can't be giving him almost 80% of the snaps, I don't think. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And I would say on offense, I'm mostly happy with everything, especially because of the Penny injury. I can't say we gave Walker too many snaps or anything because Penny got hurt. You got to do what you got to do sometimes. So really, it's just the Nwosu thing that I think was a big issue this year. And that's it for Snap Count Monday for the regular season. I'll see you guys later today, streaming the national championship game in a couple hours.